Truth. Unforbidden. Truth. Podcast. Unforbidden. Truth. Podcast.
Welcome to Unforbidden Truth. I'm Andrew. Today I'll be speaking with convicted murderer Larry Fulford. Larry is convicted of aggravated murder and is serving 20 years to life in the Toledo Correctional Institution in Toledo, Ohio. On December 2nd, 1991, Larry and his brother-in-law attacked Steven Vanderpool. He would be hit with a pool stick, stabbed, and then had a refrigerator pulled down on top of him. Larry was present during the infamous Lucasville Riot, which occurred on Easter Sunday, 1993, which resulted in the deaths of at least 9 inmates and 1 officer. Here's my interview with convicted murderer Larry Fulford.
Hello. This is a prepaid debit call from an inmate at the Toledo Correctional Institution.
All right, so my name is Larry Douglas Fulford, and I was born in Fowler County, Ohio. You know, like the most southern tip of Ohio and the end of the world. Yeah. And it's a little shitty town, a little drug town, you know what I mean? I don't know if you've ever heard of it. Fortunately.
Can you recall any positive memories from your childhood?
Well, you know, I think I had a lot of good memories, but, you know, I grew up in a family, a broken family. Dad was in a joint, in and out, alcoholic family. And so where they was going to go out and have parties, you know, they would always have to drag the kids along, so we would always get to see our cousins and stuff. And, like, those were the best times for me, was even when they was bad, you know what I mean?
What about any negative memories that stick out to you from your childhood?
Negative memories, just growing up, watching my dad beat my mom until I got old enough to, you know, stop it and stuff. And, you know, I got a sister, but she was born, I was 17 when she was born, so my life was almost already over because I was coming to prison at 18, right? So, once, when I was a kid, you know, my dad and mom drank so much every day that, you know, they fought and he beat her as a kid. So, yeah, lots of bad memories growing up, you know. But to me, it was just normal life, you know. Now looking back, I think, oh my God, this shit was crazy. But, yeah.
Were your parents together throughout your childhood?
So, yeah, so that's a really weird thing about my mom and dad is as much as they fought and drank and fought and stuff, they never separated. They always would leave for a little while and then come back. But my mom was terrified to leave my dad. Like, I don't think she ever really knew what she would do with herself if she wasn't with him. So she would leave for a couple of days and drag me along. And, like, we'd go to Cleveland and live for a couple of days, or if we was in Cleveland, because, you know, we had family in Cleveland and up north. And so if we was up there, she would be like, come here, LD, we're leaving. You want to go with your dad or you want to go with me? And then no matter what I said, she would always drag me with her. And she'd take us down to Portsmouth where her mom and stuff lived. But, yeah, I mean, I don't know. It was really a weird existence, I think. Yeah. But it was super violent in my family. You know, my dad had 9 brothers. Well, he had 8 brothers that are all my uncles. He had 4 sisters that was married to other men that was violent. And then my mom had 8 brothers and fucking 2 sisters. You know what I'm saying? So it was super violent on my dad's side of the family. Everybody drank, everybody fought, shit like that. It's the kind of existence I grew up in. But I thought it was great as a kid. I don't know why. You know? Probably because of the freedom I had to just do what I wanted, run around and shit, you know.
So you mentioned that your dad would beat on your mother. Did you suffer any type of childhood abuse?
Well, I got 2 whoopings from my dad, and they was like beating. My whole life, my dad whooped me twice. I mean, he smacked me and shit a couple times. He stopped doing shit when I was doing some stupid shit, but the the ones I remember, I had 2 whoopings from my dad, and they was like really severe beatings. You know what I mean? And that's the only time he ever touched me. But he was like, he could just look at me and I knew he was about to kill me. You know what I mean? So my dad got a lot of respect for me, but he also, you know, when he beat my mom, I fucking hated him. But then when he wasn't doing it, I loved him. So it's like right now, I can tell you, like, my dad was one of the best people after he stopped beating my mom. You know what I mean? And even when he was the nicest person to other people. Like if my dad would get a big check or whatever and have lots of money, and I could be right by him, and he could fucking go to a bar drinking, like, this is my boy, pat me on the back, all proud and shit. But then instead of buying me a new pair of shoes or something, he'd buy your kid a new pair of shoes to try to show off, right? Like, he was that kind of dude. Like, he used to cook big pots of soup and shit and just give it to people and shit like that. And then at night, beating them out, you know, it was crazy. So it was like, on one hand, he was a really good guy. On the other hand, he was a fucking piece of shit.
So you had like a love-hate relationship with your father then?
Yeah. You know, I love my dad. I do. Because, you know, the one time that I did step in to stop him from beating my mother, this is far from her, and she fucking hit me in the head with a beer mug. So, yeah. But, you know, it was really weird, though, because I stopped him twice, and then after that, he never touched her again. It was really weird. Once I got old enough, you know. But that was a pretty good sized dude, you know. He timed the joint, came out big as fuck, you know. So, yeah.
So Larry, have you been diagnosed with any mental illnesses?
Wait a minute. Well, yeah, I mean, in here, well, you know, I was in the Lucasville Riots, so I don't know if you know that or not.
Right, yeah, and we'll talk about that near the end of the interview for sure.
Yeah. Well, so I think as part of my diagnosis falls into that, but before that, no, I had never really, you know, I got in trouble and shit as kids, and they tried to send me to some people, but I was so fucking stubborn and shit about it. Like, I was like, ain't nothing wrong with me, fuck you, you know what I mean? That normal teenager attitude, right? And so, no, I've never really had a real diagnosis. I've had a prison diagnosis, and they think I'm fucking super violent sometimes and schizophrenic and fucking paranoid and shit. And I think a lot of that has to do with the riot, though.
Do you hear voices?
So, yeah. No. Good.
So, did you engage in any type of criminal activity as a juvenile?
As a juvenile, I was stealing cars and stereos, and yeah, I stole clothes. Like, I used to steal my school clothes. Like, I would, mom and dad would, you know, get their checks or whatever, and then they'd get drunk, and so I wouldn't really have money for school clothes. So, you know, dad or mom, one of them would end up giving me $50 or $40, you know, and I'm supposed to buy all my clothes, so I would go use that 50 as like this front money, and then steal all my school clothes and stuff. And, yeah, I was always into something, you know. I wasn't really violent until, you know, I got older, and then I started getting violent, you know, fighting a lot and stuff. But as a young man in school, I really was just to myself. I played music, and I used to take up for all the kids that got bullied, and it was weird because I was a little dude. But people just, they tended to have, like, give me 50 feet, you know, they had respect for me. So if I seen a bully picking on a guy, which I had a couple friends that became my friends, that I saved from bullies, and I would run up to help them, and the bullies would usually just run off. I pretty much had, like, fucking 10 uncles that was fucking super violent, and everybody knew it, right? And so I'm kind of like the little chihuahua that can bark at you because you know you got 10 Dolbies behind him, you know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
So did you ever do any like juvie time, or were you ever arrested for any of those crimes as a juvenile?
I was arrested. I got arrested one time on the Grand Theft as a juvie, and grand theft of a car. I went to JDC in Marion, Ohio, but I was only there waiting to go to court, right? So I only did like 15, 20 days there, and then went back to court and got out. So I never actually did any sentence to any juvenile time. So, nope, I kind of skipped that and went straight to prison, you know what I mean?
So,
At 18.
did you engage in any criminal activity after turning 18 prior to the case that you're serving time for now?
Well, no, as soon as I turned 18, like that year is the year I got this murder case, right? Doing 20 to life, I got arrested like right after I just turned 19. So you got to remember, it's December, so my birthday's in January, right? So, you know what I mean? Like right next to each other. But at 18, I was living like a full-blown adult, you know. I had a job. I was working at Ford, a place for Ford, you know, not Ford, but I was working at a company of Ford, fixing transmissions, because I learned how to do major engine repair in Votech in school, right? Like I quit school at 16 and went and took trade so that I could, you know, make money. Because my girlfriend had a son and I kind of adopted him, right? But I was living as a full-blown adult. I had a car. We lived in our own apartment. Every time I got paid, I would go give my mom some money because she had my sister, and my sister was a baby. And I, at 18, and even at 17 and 16, was the only person in our family that had a car, like full-time. So everyone in my family, and you got to imagine, man, Dad had 9 brothers, 4 sisters, Mom, 8 brothers, 4 sisters. They all had kids. Some of their kids had kids. And so you can imagine, everyone always needed a ride, or everyone wanted something from me all the time. Like I was like a center of my family at one point in time. Yeah, so I wasn't really being a criminal at that time. At 18, I was kind of chilling out. I was an alcoholic. I drank a lot. Even when people wasn't around or I was by myself, I would drink. But during the day, I would go to work. I would come home. I didn't fuck up my job. Stuff like that. And yeah, it was just weird. That year I was doing good. I was working. I was trying to help everyone in the family and everything, and I wasn't doing anything wrong. Before that, I was running around, you know, fighting, getting in trouble. I had got a felonious assault charge in the same building that I ended up killing this guy in. There was a guy named Frank Rigsby there, and you know, I beat him up pretty bad and got a charge for it, felonious assault. It's one of the charges they used to push me into a plea bargain on this murder case. So, yeah, I had a fucking pending felonious assault on that.
Let's talk about the crime that you're currently in prison for now. You're serving 20 to life for the murder of Steven Vanderpool. Can you walk me through everything that led up to the homicide of Steven?
Yeah, so, you know, like I was telling you, this is the year I'm 18. I'm trying to do the right thing and work and, you know, stuff like this. And so this apartment building that Steve lives in, he lives in the basement apartment. In the top floor, my Aunt Debbie lives. And she has a son, Roy Holsinger, who ends up being one of my co-defendants in this. And his sister, Rachel, they live upstairs, right? So anyways, I worked that day, so my old lady, her son, was too young to be by himself, so I had my Aunt Debbie watching him. And so it was like 8:30 at night, and his mom, my girlfriend, she was at work at the hamburger joint, so I had to go pick him up, and then I had to go pick her up, right? And so, so I pulled up at the place, and I go in. They're having a party. They're all partying and stuff at like 8:30. And I told you I'm an alcoholic, so I started to drink. And, you know, I didn't even go upstairs and get my son yet. I just started to drink at this basement apartment party and stuff. This is Steve's party. Everybody's there. I don't know this guy, though. He just moved in, right? And so, you know, long story short, the night moves on and stuff. I end up leaving and going and getting my brother-in-law, which would become my brother-in-law later, my wife's brother, Cameron. And I ended up going and getting him so because I had him drive my son back to his mom because, he was sober and I wasn't drinking. So anyway, the end of the night, it's like fucking 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm drunk now, I ain't home. I go out to get in the car, I'm getting ready to leave. I'm getting ready to drive drunk and go home. And I got the car running, and here comes my little cousin. I call him my cousin, little Roy. Comes out and he knocks on my window, and he's like, hey, you got to come back in here because dude won't let Rachel leave. He's in there fucking with her. So I'm like, what do you mean? Now, Rachel was 14 years old. Steve was 30 at the time. And so I was like, all right, fuck it, hold on. I was like, get out of the car, and I go back in. And Steve has Rachel, like, it lives in a shotgun apartment. It's like, as soon as you go through the door, the living room, kitchen, bedroom, bathroom, right? And you can see it the whole way through. And so I see him, he's on the bed, he's kind of got her pinned up against the wall, and he won't let her leave. She's 14, so she's been already, doing her thing, and she's shaking her butt at the party and fucking all around him, teasing him that night. It's not her fault. So, you know what I mean? So anyways, I go over there, I snatch her by her arm, and I say, Rachel, get your ass upstairs, your mom wants you. And as soon as I pull her away from him, he punched me in the face. And so if you ever can find those newspaper clippings, the first mugshot you see of me, you'll see my eyes swelled. It's got a big ass swell up mark on the bottom of it. And so anyways, I seen this half a pool cue because he knocked me down. So when I looked over and up against the wall, it was like a half a pool cue. And I just jumped up and whacked him twice with the pool cue. He fell forward. They said he was already dead. But when he hit the floor, I pulled the refrigerator over on him so that he couldn't move. Grabbed her, told her to get her ass upstairs. There was a ton of people in the apartment. I don't even remember. And I went out. I got in my car and I drove home. And, that's about it. We did on the way to my house, I stopped the car and let Roy Dean out to run over to a payphone to call an ambulance. When he gets over to this payphone that's in front of this apartment building, someone ripped the receiver off of the payphone. So to this day, I think if he could have made that call, it might have saved Steve's life. But, that's how it went.
So what was the aftermath that followed that night?
So my brother-in-law, the guy that became my brother-in-law, went back to the house and took dude's wallet and got $23 out of it, and that caused it to be an ag murder, ag robbery case. See what I'm saying? So he ends up being a Cody of mine. And he comes back, he wakes me up at 5:30 in the morning, a.m. And I've been drinking and shit, so you know how that is. So, or maybe he wakes me up and he's like, man, LD, you got to get up. I'm like, what the fuck, man? What's wrong? And he's like, look, dude's dead. I'm like, what are you talking about, man? He's like, that dude, man, we got into it with last night, he's dead. And so I got up and then I'm fucking freaking out, didn't know what to do. I drove up to my mom's house and told my mom, I said, listen, I'm probably going to be going to jail. I fucking killed somebody last night. And she's like, shut up, you're fucking retarded, quit playing. I'm like, Mom, I'm serious. And I told her the situation and stuff. And I went back to the house. I stayed at the house. My girlfriend comes home from work. She went to work that morning. She comes home from work. She's in the bathroom in the bathtub taking a bath. And we hear the police coming up the steps. There's nowhere to run. I'm in a top floor apartment. And so I fucking ran in the bathroom, closed the door. My old lady's in the bathroom. Like, what the fuck are you doing? I'm like, man, the police are out there. And she's like, well, where are you going to go? We didn't have no bathroom in the window or no window in the back. So I'm like, fuck it. I just walked out there. He's like, man, we want to talk to you. And I went downtown, and that was it. Yeah.
And so you were arrested the same day that he passed away?
No, I was arrested the next, probably because, it was a.m., so probably. Yeah, probably the same day. I'm not really sure 100% the date, but I'm pretty sure it was December 2nd of 91. I'm almost positive. Yeah. So, that's how that happened. And before I get indicted on that, Steve, I'm in jail, right? It's the second. My Uncle Randy's in B range of our county jail. There's 4 ranges in our county jail. There's A, B, C, and D. C and D are little small ranges on the side. A and B are like the long ranges over on this side. My uncle's over on B range. And he's like, hey, bro, hand me one of them mattresses out there. So there's a big pile of mattresses when you go in. You got to grab one, take it in with you. But I grab one and I slide it through the food slot to him. And I realized, man, this is a big-ass food slot. It's kind of big. I bet I could fit my head through this fucker. And so I tried it, and I fit my head in, and it fit, right? So I'll fast forward you to the 12th of December. I've been there for 10 days now, and it's quiet as fuck. I see that third shift CO leaves the catwalk open on the county jail. There's a day room on our roof. And I slipped through that fucking food slot. I took my Cody camera with me, and he slipped out of his food slot, and we went out into the day room, around the top of the building, and slid down the wires, the fucking communication lines on the back of the building, and escaped out of the county on it. So, yeah, that happened.
How long were you? How long had you been out until you were re-arrested?
Well, we ended up turning ourselves in because I was only out for like probably hours. You know what I mean? It probably wasn't a full day. So, but it felt like forever, you know, because we was on the run. And I went and to my grandpa's, and then my grandpa and them gave me a ride to McDermott, dropped me off. But then my grandpa later, he come and got me. I was in the woods hiding, and he come and got me and said, look, man, he said, they arrested your grandma. My grandma was like 70 years old or whatever, sick. And he's telling me everything happened. I said, you know what? I'm not going to let her sit in jail. I said, fuck it, let's go. And I told him to call him. He called him. He called the sheriff, which was Hall at the time, I think. And he said, look, man, my grandson wants to turn himself in. And then he said, well, put him on the phone. So I'm talking to him. I'm talking to the sheriff on the phone. I said, listen, I'll turn myself in. I said, but you got to do me a favor. I said, listen, man, don't bring all them cameras. I knew there was going to be tons of cameras because there already was on the murder, right? I said, listen, don't bring all that news shit and don't, come like swarming in. I said, I'm unarmed. I'll turn myself in. He's like, look, Larry, he said, I know your family my whole life. He does because they're in and out of jail. But he said, I'll come and get you. He said, I'll bring one person with me. We'll come in an unmarked car. He said, just tell me where and when. And he kept his word and come and got me. But when we got back to the county, there was news cameras everywhere. Channel 13 News. Chuck Strickland. I don't know if you ever heard of him, but he was an anchor. He'd come to court and tried to interview me and stuff, and I never would talk to him. But yeah, pretty wild.
So
I've had an eventful life.
So you said you were offered a plea deal, which you took, which was the 20 to life, correct?
Yeah, so on that, you got to realize, so now I'm in there. I have ag murder, ag robbery, felonious assault pending on unrelated charges, and now I have an escape because I escaped, right? And so they bring me downstairs, and the prosecutor, Griffiths, was like telling my attorney to tell me he's going to give me this deal. He'll give me a deal, 20 to life. They'll drop the robbery or drop everything else, and that's just be what it is. Me, I'm like, hell no, I ain't about to do all that. So my attorneys are like, well, look, even if you don't do it on escape, the felonious assault and all that, you're going to end up doing like this amount of years. It was like 50-some years. It was crazy, right? And so they said, you want to talk to somebody before you decide? And I'm like, yeah, man, I want to talk to my dad. So in the newspaper clipping, you can read this. They say this. They actually go into the hallway, pat my dad down, pat him down, and bring him into the courtroom to the fucking defense table and set him down and show him all the pictures of the dead body of Steve, my hands, and just everything that they had. They show it to my father. And my dad said, I'm like, well, what do you think, man? And he's like, man, I don't know. He said, I'm not no lawyer. He said, but 20 to life with a possibility of parole after 15 sounds better than 80 flat, right? And I'm like, he said, well, at least you'll have a chance to get out here. He said, there, you're going to die in prison. If you do 50 to 80 years, you'll never get out. So that's what I did. I ended up taking the deal. My attorney paid for my marriage license right there on the spot. Went downstairs and got married to my girlfriend. And off to Lucasville.
So how did you feel after you were convicted and sentenced, knowing that you would have to serve 15 years in prison before being eligible for parole?
But, you know, it never really sunk into me. It's just like, it's weird because, you know, like I told you, growing up, my dad had all those brothers. Even my dad's mother, my grandmother, all did time in prison. So you have to understand, I've been in and out of prisons my whole life visiting people. So it was kind of like, felt like this shit didn't even bother me. I'm in jail. It didn't even really bother me. The only part that bothered me was missing people, missing family, missing things, right? And so it never really hit me like at one time. Like, and still to this day, I still feel like, man, I'm going to get out. I'm not worried about it. I got hope. Sometimes I feel like that, you know what I mean? And I don't know, it's just a really weird thing. Unless I sit here and look back at all the people that's dead and all the people that's grown up and stuff, it's hard to really fathom the time I've been in prison now. And, you know, I was just going with the flow back then. I was young. I come into prison. I started boxing, trying to get my stuff together, fighting all the time because I was a young kid. And, you know, back then there was a lot of fucking people fucking trying to rape young kids and shit. You know, because I came to prison, they still had the weights. They still had, like, everything. It was crazy. And, yeah, I don't know. I was just trying to survive, Andrew. I was just trying to, you know, make it. And it's hard. I think to this day, I owe a lot to my family. Dude named Freddie Stone is one of my dad's first cousins because he was in Lucasville when I got there, and he kind of fucking guided me along. And so without him, I think it's hard to tell what would have happened to me. I could have probably been killed because they was killing people in Lucasville when I got there. It was like the most notorious prison in Ohio, in the United States back then at the time. So, yeah, it's terrifying. Hey, my lawyer, even in my plea arrangement, it even says it in the newspaper when they
You have 1 minute remaining.
we had an interview after I got sentenced, and my lawyer said, yeah, I just hope they don't send him to Lucasville. They actually printed that in the paper. If you can ever see those papers, you'll see all that.
Speaking of Lucasville, you were there serving time when the riots broke out, correct?
Yeah.
So, so tell me what you know about the riots and what everything looked like to you from your perspective at that point in time.
Man, well, like I told you, when I first got to Lucasville, it was August of 1992. And the day that I walked in the door, man, it was like you see in the movies, you know, dudes was whistling and this and that. And so it was terrifying. I was a 19-year-old kid, you know what I mean? And I never did no juvie time. So the only thing I had was my county and the experience that my mom, you know, my dad and all them had told me from their prison. But anyway, I'm walking down the hallway, and I get in my cell, and I was just in shock, man. I didn't know what to do. And this place was super violent, so you had to be on your toes all the time, right? And it was just terrifying. And it was hard to blend in. And like I told you, had I not had my cousin here, it's hard to tell what would have happened to me. You know, my second day in the cell, I got in a fight with the guy and stuff like that. But, yeah, my feelings about Lucasville was that it was just a murder place. It was terrible. It was fucking awful. And, yeah, it was violent. Leading up to the riot, you know, I had only been there for like a year because the riot was April of 93. And, you know, the Muslims had been told that they was going to be forced to take TB shots. And so they wasn't feeling that. So that's what really kind of got the ball rolling. Plus, there was lots of other shit. You know, they was forcing us to sell black and white. And back then, you just didn't do that. And they was forcing people to do so. There was no phones. We couldn't call. We got one phone call a year for 5 minutes. And stuff like that. You know, little shit like that. It just all added up to guys just going crazy. But on the day of the riot, man, there was like this fucking fog in the air. It was just like a heavy air that day. You know what I'm saying? Like, you ever just felt that, like something just ain't right feeling? And that's how it was all that morning. I got up, I fucking put some cigarettes in my pocket, And I grabbed a big-ass cup of coffee and went out to the day room. The day room is a room in between the blocks, and you can kind of see the hallway. And I'm out there watching the fucking Poison Ivy, and I'm watching Poison Ivy. Hold on, huh? Yeah. So yeah, I'm fucking just rip it off of there. Talking to my. So yeah. So when it started, I could see it, and I could hear this big ass rumbling coming down the motherfucking hallway. And so I'm looking out, and it was terrifying. The CO was just at my door. That's why. But here they come, man. Then back then in Lucasville, there was a key man. He's in the hallway. There's a guy standing in the hallway that when you want to get out of the block, you flick a light switch. They see the light. They come down. They open the door. When they open the door, there's two consoles, and that's where the COs sit. And they're in the wide open, so you just run right in, boom. That's what they did. They ran in, tackled the COs, beat the fuck out of them, stabbed them up, and then hit the keys and opened all the doors to the blocks. And it was terrifying, man. I mean, I've only been there like a year. I was just a kid. Anyone that says they wasn't scared is lying. I don't care who he was. Because one false move, you could got killed, you know. I've seen bodies laying everywhere. You know, to this day, I'm still really skeptical that only 11 people died, right? Because I see people laying everywhere. And, you know, I just feel like in my heart that there was some kind of cover-up to that shit. Because I seen piles of bodies, man. And it was way more than 11, you know what I mean? I don't know, and it was pretty wild. I went around breaking pipes and stuff to get water because they shut the water off, so I would climb up into the ceilings and break pipes so the water would run out into these big trash cans so we'd have water and stuff. And, yeah, it's pretty wild. I don't know.
Did you ever get into any fights during the riots? Like, did you ever get stabbed up, or did you ever have to defend yourself?
Myself, I never got. Oh, I got in fights all through my time at Lucasville, but I never got in any in the riot. In the riot, I kind of stayed back, put a bandana. You know, we was wearing black sweatshirts, and we put our blue shirt over top of it like everybody was, just trying to have the same outfit, right? And then I put a blue bandana around my face, and then my ball cap on, and I had a big ass piece of metal, you know, like sword thing, and fucking, I was just running around breaking pipes and shit. I wasn't trying to hurt anybody. I wasn't trying to get hurt, you know what I mean?
Was there ever any time where you felt that your life was in danger, that you were going to possibly get stabbed up or killed?
Oh, yeah, the whole time. I mean, it was terrifying because, I mean, it was like I told you, like, say me and you pass each other in the hallway and me and you didn't get along, right? But we was in different blocks, and so we'd been living there. But just say that we didn't get along, and then you seen me in the riot, and you was like, oh, here's that dude. Next thing you know, you're going to have 50 dudes just stabbing you because everybody was thirsty to just have a reason, you know what I mean? And so, yeah, it was fucking terrifying, man. I didn't know what to do. I was scared to death the whole time.
So did you witness the stabbings and the murders of the officers and the inmates and stuff like that?
Well, there was only one officer that they say died, and I never witnessed that because it came later in the day. The initial takeover, the initial siege, I seen COs getting beat and stabbed and stuff. Which is why I tell you, to this day, I personally don't believe that only one CO died because when they beat these COs that I seen take over, there was no way these guys lived. I mean, they beat these guys. It make you feel sorry. I felt sorry for them. I mean, I was just like wanted to stop it, but you couldn't because you know it was awful. You know, the guys begging for their lives and getting beat, and you just standing there and you can't do shit about it. It's really harsh. It's a harsh situation.
So that was in 1993, and it's 2023 now. It's 30 years later. How do you spend your time in prison these days?
Man, I fucking basically try to keep myself busy. I work, and you got to realize all my family's dead now. So my mom was my backbone. she's gone, and I have a sister, but my sister hasn't talked to me since I came up here to Toledo. I don't know why. You know, I love her. I miss her. She visited me. Like, my sister grew up while I was at Lucasville, my mom and them lived 15 minutes down the street. So if you could probably raid my sister's house right now, you'd probably see pictures of her from the time she was a baby, and then in intervals all the way up until she's grown, right? Because that's how our relationship was. But yeah, she hasn't talked to me in 4 years, so I don't know. So now I make my days go by. I work in the kitchen. I talk to Ro, you know, and I draw, and she kind of helps me along, man. You know, without her, you know, Ro's lifesaver to me, because at the time she came into my life, man, I was ready to give up. I was done, and she just popped up out of nowhere. So, yeah, I was tired. I was done. I was ready to give it up, man. I was actually on suicide watch on the day that I got a letter from her. I don't even know if I told her that, but yeah.
Have you ever attempted suicide in prison?
Oh yeah, I have a couple times. Cut myself a few times. Yeah. I was ready to get it over with, man. I hung myself and woke up on the floor, you know. So, like, I went all the way till I was out.
So what happens when you try to commit suicide? What's the procedure that the staff need to take to make sure you're safe and the other inmates are safe?
Well, there's really no way. If I want to die, I can die. You know what I'm saying? It's simple. You know, people have killed themselves here. Friends of mine, a buddy of mine just killed himself here, a guy named Red. And, you know, in here, I don't know about other prisons. This prison is, so say we got day room, right? The doors are open. The COs are not in the block. So we can go, me and my buddy could run in your cell and kill you. By the time they come in here to save you, it's over with. You would be dead. That's the shit I'm living in right now. So, you know, every day you have to be, you know, vigilant. You have to be aware. It's dangerous. So now, say I wanted to kill myself, all I would have to do right now, COs are out in the hallway. I could fucking board my cell up and do it. And by the time they figured out I was dead, it'd be too late. That's a simple fact. But I kind of have a will to live now. I'm trying to push towards something. Like I told you, I met Ro, and she kind of gave me a little new hope on life, man. And so now I'm trying to make it, doing all the right things, and, you know, working and, you know, trying to stay out of trouble, because I used to be a really violent dude, and I fought a lot and stuff, and I have been trying to avoid all that. When I say a violent dude, I'm not talking about towards people in general. I'm just talking about in here to survive, you know what I mean? Because really, I'm a nice guy, you know, I'm a family man, love kids and dogs and all the shit that regular people like. But in here, you have to turn into an animal, you know what I mean? And this is part of myself that I don't like. So, you know, I just want to make it home, man, before I die. I don't want to die in prison.
So, Larry, does the prison that you're in offer any type of rehabilitation classes or courses to further your education?
Yeah, they have a few programs. I'm not really sure about re-entry stuff because I'm not close to that yet. But, you know, now I work in the kitchen, and there's a program that I'm signed up for that you learn, like, culinary skills, and you get state certified to work as a fucking food service. So that would mean I would be state certified to get out of here and come back and work at a state facility or anything, you know, related to, like, Airmark food service and stuff like that. I would be certified for that, and I'm signed up for that. Yeah, that's the only thing I know so far. I don't know any other programs here. I know they got college. I'm too old for that. I got a GED, so, you know, I'm a pretty good artist. I'm really good at mechanics. You know, I was a mechanic on the streets, so I would like to learn, because of the 30 years ago, cars were different. You know what I mean? I would have to learn the new systems. I'm not really sure what I would do if I got out tomorrow, Andrew. I would probably go fishing. I don't know. I'll be lost out there, you know.
So, before we conclude this interview, is there anything that you would like to talk about that we haven't covered yet?
Well, there's probably a lot, you know, but, you know, just trying to think of it now, you know, it's hard. You know, if you're trying to give your viewers and listeners, you know, a picture of a man that, you know, come to prison and been set in prison for 32 years, it's really hard to give you that, because I've been in solitary confinement. You know, my whole prison bit, I've been in a single cell. You know what I'm saying? Like one person in a cell. And so that's how I'm living. You know, it's harsh and it's rough. And yeah, you know, I would hope that no one would endure this kind of plan, you know, this stuff here. I don't know what I would say to anyone. You know, like I said, my social skills are probably not up to par. You know, I've been locked up so long. And, you know, no, I really don't know, man. You know, maybe we could have a different talk sometime about it, you know. I'd have to think about that. I don't know, man. What do you think, bro? You help people? What is it that you do?
You have 1 minute remaining.
I give a platform to prisoners to have their voices heard and tell their story and get anything out there that they want to get out there.
I don't know, man. This is Steve's family. If he has a family, you know, I'm sorry. But that's a true story I just told, and that's how it happened. You know, maybe they'll forgive me and I'll get free one day. You know what I mean? I had to call you some other times.
That was my interview with Larry Fulford. Thank you for listening.
Unforbidden truth. Unforbidden truth. Podcast. Unforbidden truth. Podcast.